Hi, my name is Phil, and I'm the Youth Services Librarian here at Octavia Flynn Public Library. Welcome to Mighty Chondria Kids, a program for elementary-aged students that focuses on topics of science, technology, reading, engineering, arts, and making. Today, we're going to be exploring the science of sound by making kazoos, which are simple musical instruments that you can make at home. Let's take a look at the materials we'll be using today. For today's activity, you will need a small square of paper towel, a small square of aluminum foil, a small square of a plastic grocery bag, a paper tube, a pencil, and a rubber band. You may have these materials already at home, but if you don't, you can request a supply kit at ofpl.online, and you'll be able to pick that supply kit up at the main library. Let's go ahead and get started with our exploration of sound. Just start by saying the word kazoo. Think about how your voice sounds when you say that word. Think about also what you feel happening maybe in your throat or in your chest when you say that word, kazoo. Now try putting your hand right on the front of your throat here and now say kazoo again. Kazoo. What do you feel? What do you notice? Now let's add in our paper tube. So take your paper tube and put it to your mouth so it's touching the skin above and below your mouth, and then try saying that word again. Kazoo. Try that a couple of times. When you do that, does your voice sound different as it's traveling through the tube? Do you feel anything different? Kazoo. Can you feel the tube vibrating a little bit when you talk? Now let's add in another ingredient. So we have our paper tube. Now we're going to add in a sheet of plastic grocery bag. Put that over the top of your tube, and then take your rubber band that's in your kit and put it around the top so that it secures the plastic bag in place, and you may have to double it up like me. So now you have a plastic bag covering the end of your kazoo like this. Now go ahead and try saying kazoo into it again and see what you notice. What might be different? Kazoo. Do you notice anything strange? What do you hear? What do you feel? Maybe try putting your finger on the end and seeing what you feel. Kazoo. Before we move on, let's try a couple more experiments with our kazoo. So the first thing I'm going to try is to really tightly stretch the plastic bag across the end of my tube to see if that changes the sound at all. So I'm pulling the plastic down really tightly on the sides, and now I'll try seeing what it sounds like. Kazoo! Interesting. Go ahead and try that yourself. Now I'm going to sort of loosen up the plastic a little bit so that there's a little bit more wrinkles in the end of my kazoo. Now it's sort of wrinkly on the end, and now I'm going to try it again. Kazoo! Wow, that sounded a lot different. I wonder why. Let's make another change to our kazoo. So I'm going to take the rubber band off and the plastic bag, and now I'm going to take my piece of aluminum foil that I have right here and put it over the end of the tube and put my rubber band back on. So now I have a very similar instrument, but it's just a different material on the end of my kazoo. Now let me try talking into it and seeing what it sounds like. Kazoo! Did you notice any differences? I thought that sounded very different. Play around with it and see what you notice about the difference between aluminum foil and the plastic bag. Let's make one last change to our kazoo. I'm going to remove the rubber band and the aluminum foil and put on my last type of material, which is a piece of paper towel. So I'll cover the end of my kazoo with the paper towel, and once again add the rubber band. And now I have a new kind of instrument, still a kazoo. I'm going to try it out. Kazoo. Interesting. Kazoo. Kazoo. It sounds almost the same as when I'm not using it at all. Kazoo. Play around with this and see if you can get any different kinds of sounds to come out with the paper towel. Let's talk a little bit about the science behind our experiment. Sound is caused by vibration, which is just something moving back and forth really fast. You can tell this when you put your fingers to your throat while you talk. You can feel your voice box vibrating, or if you touch a speaker that's playing music. The vibration causes sound waves, and they're invisible to our eyes. We can't see them, but they are traveling through the air, and they hit our ear, and that causes the inside of our ear to vibrate, which causes us to be able to hear that sound. Well, when we played the kazoo, the vibration of our voice box made sound waves that traveled down the tube and hit the end of the tube, whatever was covering the end of the tube, the plastic bag or the aluminum foil. And that caused that material to start vibrating as well at the same frequency or the same speed as our voice box was. And that's really how a kazoo works. Now, if you were wondering why the plastic and the aluminum foil and the paper towel all sounded different, it's probably because of how flexible each material was, which then allowed it to either vibrate more or less in response to the sound. So the plastic bag, I noticed, was able to vibrate a lot, especially when there was extra wrinkles on the end of it. But the aluminum foil, a little bit, and then the paper towel didn't really vibrate at all, so there was no extra sound. The reason for that is that even though we can't see them, there are tons of tiny little holes in paper towels that allow the air and the sound waves just to pretty much go right through it. So that's how a kazoo works. Even though we think of kazoos as probably more like a flute or a clarinet because of the way we would hold them and blow into them, it's actually more closely related to a drum. If you think about a drum, you're hitting the top of the drum, and the drum head, the part that you hit, is actually vibrating, which makes the sound. And that's the same thing that we're doing with the kazoo. People have been making kazoos for thousands of years. In fact, the first kazoos were made from hollowed out bones, with spider egg sacs used for the vibrating membrane instead of plastic or aluminum foil, which would be super interesting to see. Well, I hope you learned a little bit more about sound science today. I'd encourage you to keep playing with your kazoo and see what else you can learn about sound. Thank you so much for joining us for Mighty Chondria Kids today. Check out some of our other programs coming up, both online and in person. Thanks.